A girl walks along the shoreline of Ilha do Governador, her eyes fixed on the waters of Guanabara Bay, a region historically affected by untreated sewage and the accumulation of solid waste. Her focused gaze contrasts with the memories crossing her mind. Stories from her father and grandfather about a time where pods of dolphin lapped through those same waters, once so clear, so abundant. The girl sees neglect and pollution in the murky waters, yet she also glimpses the beauty and potential of that place. She does not know yet, but restoring ecosystems will become part of her destiny. My guest today is Thaiane Maciel, a visionary born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, who has explored different sectors. As an actress, she developed a deep commitment to the craft of storytelling and communicating meaningful messages. As an environmental engineer, she built her professional engagement with sustainability, recycling, and ecological restoration. As the founder of Instituto Ecocria and creator of Canal Novo Mundo, Thaiane promotes awareness through environmental and climate education, community engagement, and communication. As a consultant, she collaborates with corporations and social environmental responsibility projects. Now based in Berlin, Germany, Thaiane is deepening her work through scientific research on circular economy solutions, comparing recycling systems around the world. She is an International Climate Protection Fellow, a member of Novo Clima, the Brazil-Germany Sustainability Network, and research advisor on a project related to plastic waste, in partnership with NUMETS and the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Her work has also been recognized with distinctions such as Climate Personality by the Climate Reality Project and UNESCO Green Citizen. Big deal here. Let's check it out. Thaiane Maciel, what a pleasure to have you here. A great pleasure. I follow your work for years now. You have been such a special talent in multiple areas, in multiple sectors. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me and to have this opportunity to speak to a broad audience and to bring my life, to bring my story, to bring different perspectives. Also, I think it would be a very interesting conversation today.
I bet we will. So, Thaiane, I would like to start this podcast asking you, what is the earliest memory from your childhood or adolescence that connects you to nature or the idea of caring for the planet that is something still influencing your decisions today?
So it's been decisive, I would say, because it was really important to bring my experience as a kid, as a child, and what was important to me besides acting, because I don't know if everybody knows here, but I was a child actress in Brazil, and I started very young when I was 3 years old. And then when I thought about what I loved, what was important to me besides acting and culture in general, I had this memory of environmental classes I had, recycling classes, and also this experience of like, how do I reuse these materials? How do I compost? How do I... So when I thought about following the environmental path, the engineering, and also the activist, I think it was very strong inside of me. That's why I really like to push the education agenda, because I think that's so important. When we have these experiences, kids, we will value after in life what's important. I feel that we only value what we love, and we only love because we knew this before. We had any kind of interaction with these classes or even with the nature. I think it's important to have this contact with the nature and then go outside and experience as much as possible. So I always like to bring this information and these memories as kids.
That's amazing. So just to shed some light on your basics here, where were you born? Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, or somewhere else?
I was born and raised in Rio, but I was not in the most famous Copacabana or Ipanema beaches. For example, I was in a polluted bay. I was living very close to the airport, the international airport. So it's an area that's not in the media. It's not very known for many people, but it's an area that is very special for me. It's very pretty. It's called Ilha do Governador. And then we are surrounded by Guanabara Bay, that's one of the most polluted bays in the world. So I never had the chance to enjoy the water, to see shrimp, to see dolphins. And then my father and my grandfather, they used to tell me that when they were kids, they had this opportunity to go and enjoy nature. So for me, it was something very important, like to try to protect and also restore the area because it's such a beautiful place, but at the same time, we don't receive much attention from the government, for example, from City Hall of Rio.
It sticks with me the fact that you grew up in this ecosystem where pollution was a central topic for you, right? You were looking at the beach around you and you were like wondering, oh, this could be different. I have the testimony of my dad, of my family. I really wonder how this caused a very deep impact in the way you see the world as, the word you see currently with a few challenges to solve and the potential word that's not there, but you know is possible.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember me and my siblings also, because we all heard this, and we are many siblings. I think this affected all of us in a way that we wanted to take care of this place. And I know that people in general that are living there would feel the same, like they want the same. But at the same time, many times we don't know how to act. We don't know how to start. We don't know how to restore. We think that's only the fault of the government. And of course, they need to take care of this. But also, I feel that we as individuals, we need to also take more action to somehow like do something. And for me, this was very clear during the pandemic because I was living in Sao Paulo, working as an actress. I had decided, okay, I would just focus on acting again after engineering. But then because of the pandemic, I had to come back to my mom place in Rio de Janeiro. And then I started to walk there with my brother, and then we were always thinking about how could we contribute. And I think the pandemic also brought to many of us this kind of what can I do? I don't know. How can we change the world in a way, in a direction that it's so interesting, but also like we needed some answers. I felt like that. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to go every time I had to think a little bit or I had to clear my mind. I used to go and walk by this bay, and I always look at it, the trash and the pollution, and I was always like, why is it like this? Why this beach is like this? I don't know. I would love to have the chance to enjoy this ecosystem, to enjoy this place, and then I couldn't. So I think this was very strong inside of me and my siblings somehow. So
Just love that. What a strong mark you have since early on, pointing out to a change of scenarios and how this is special. A lot of times we take it for granted, we don't pay attention. Sometimes we even consider this a problem, right? Feeling frustrated about stuff that they are not working out around us. Sometimes they point a direction of a life change. On that note, I would like to ask you, Thaiane, which experience were decisive in your maturation until you realized your work would be tied to social environmental impact?
I think the pandemic was really important. It made me go to this shift
Shift.
my direction. Yeah.
Mhm.
So from acting to more social impact, but also I always see the possibility of combining both. So I always try to combine communication with social aspects because I think if we only act locally and don't communicate or like don't think about these strategies of storytelling and then bringing to a broad audience, I think we could have way better results if we combine both like social action, but also the power of communication and education. So those are some tools that I try to put in my work and use a lot. Even as a scientist, researcher, I think this combination is really, really important. Like, how do we get this information that we have as scientists, researchers, and then we bring to a broad audience? I was just working on this at the moment, so that's part also my research. And I think it's really necessary to communicate to a broad audience. But I think the pandemic was really, it changed my perspective, but also made me go through this social impact direction because we didn't have another option. Like we had to do something. We need to change our behavior. I still feel that I'm a bit frustrated because I honestly thought that after the pandemic we would learn things. And I think that somehow the world went to a direction that it's not what I was expecting after the pandemic. I was way more optimistic, I would say. Like, I thought, okay, we have this big challenging in front of us, and then I don't know. I need to be honest. Like I was hoping that we would have like a better path at the moment, but I think it was important to understand the direction that I was going.
Problems related to communication are in most of the pressing challenges all over the globe, nationally, locally, and internationally too. Which brings me to the next question I have for you, your international experience, currently in German, right? I would like to ask you, how did this experience of living abroad, stepping into a completely different ecosystem like German and Europe in a broad way, expand your vision for sustainable business globally? I can follow some of your trajectory so far, but this is also related to stakeholders that you sort of know. You deal with them in a context, you understand the way they think. What did the international experience add to your perception of sustainable causes?
Honestly, I when I was in Brazil, and I think that's something that we many of us feel like when we are in Latin America and when we are in Africa or Asia, like because that's I'm finishing a research, I'm finishing a fellowship at the moment, and we had participants from different continents. So we were from Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Yeah, most of us. And I felt like we had this perspective of the US and Europe that are very interesting continents, like US, like not a like
North
a country,
America, yeah.
but North
Uh-huh.
America, but like I think we had this like, oh, okay, things are going, everything will be amazing in Europe, everything will work perfectly, but that's not. We have different challenges, so it's very interesting this new perspective because it's not true that they have all answers to everything. So we have different challenges. We have in Latin America some, we have in Europe others. So, for example, my research is really investigating recycling systems. And then Germany is a reference for recycling systems, for example. But at the same time, they have many challenges they are facing because they don't recycle most of it. They consider that's recycling, but honestly, they incinerate big part of plastics.
Wow.
So there are some things that when you go deep into the conversation, when you go deep into the reality, you see that, oh, okay, that's not exactly what I was thinking. That's not like they don't have all the solutions. And I think that sometimes we take for granted many of our solutions in Latin America or in Africa and Asia. So for me, it was very interesting this developing countries perspective. In reality, we have many nature-based solutions. We have many technologies. We have a lot of resources. So I think it's really important like to see ourselves as like these countries with so many potential, with so many resources, with so many possibilities, and we have some creative minds that's very interesting also. Like we find solutions for things that sometimes people were not thinking. So it's very nice to see like, how could we combine these different perspectives in order to achieve something good and something big? Because I think, of course, I'm always learning. We are always like learning with the technology from Germany, with systems. But also, I think this combination is really powerful and should not be taken for granted. Like, it's not because it's Europe that is better. I mean, I think if we could combine the solutions, if we could have a better dialogues, have better exchange, but in order to both grow together, I think this would be amazing. And that's my goal for the next years, I would say, to try to build an environment or to try to think about the strategies of combining both in order to grow together and avoid conflicts, for example. I think it's really important to have these different perspectives. So I think coming abroad and then going deep into these different ecosystems, I think it was really powerful. It really expanded my
Right.
my
Eye-opening.
mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This podcast is brought to you by Peregrine Growth, a founder operating system designed to help entrepreneurs transform ideas into real companies through market validation, business model design, and disciplined revenue systems. Before raising capital, scaling teams, or expanding globally, founders must learn how to operate with clarity, understanding their market, structuring their economics, and building the discipline required to generate real growth. Build discipline in revenue, not just ideas. Visit peregrinegrowth.com and check more. Now let's get back to the podcast. No, I love something that you said, and just to confirm what I'm hearing you say, this experience of challenging some of the narratives about how some places in the world called developed look at places they call underdeveloped or developing countries. This narrative makes us to miss that a lot of times some solutions can come from places that people don't expect, and a lot of times this place where everything should be running perfectly fine, it's not that perfectly like they say, right? And only some local experience like yours in Germany right now can give you this type of context. Something that you said that also makes my mind blowing here is connection in the territories you have been through, right? Instead of thinking my Brazilian ecosystem or my German ecosystem, what about solutions that I can integrate? Or what about the territories that I can combine and navigate? This is very interesting. In that sense, I would like you to tell a little bit about your role as a founder and the organizations you've created. What led you to create these organizations, Thaiane, and why are those important for the market and for our societies?
So I was not thinking about this. It was really like something that happened. I was not with this entrepreneur thinking. I just wanted to do better. I wanted to work for the world. I wanted to combine my expertise as actress, like the communication with the environmental background as an engineer also. So it was really not on purpose, but then there is a moment in your life that you say, okay, I need in order to move forward, I need to create an NGO, or I need to think about my social impact company. I need to think about the strategies in order to have a bigger audience, in order to reach more people, because you need to work, and then at the same time, like you need to think about ways to survive and to pay your bills and etc. So you need to maybe combine your work and then your passion with these possibilities, like making it profitable or non-profitable. Like in the case of my institute, for example, we are a non-profit organization, but I also work as a consultant for environmental communication and storytelling. That's also one of my companies or one of my works. So it was really not something that I thought about, but then in order to have a bigger impact, to being known, and then I started in a very small way. I need to be honest. Like we started like by doing things. We didn't start like, okay, I will get this grant here and there. It was really like by doing. And then there was a moment that it for me was really like, okay, from now on we need to have all the legal part, and then it took some time because all this being an entrepreneur, but also like the legal part, it can be a little bit tricky. So it took some time until we reached this like moment of the organization.
Right. And tell me a little bit about those organizations. How are they called and what do they do?
So Instituto Ecocria, it's my NGO, and we focus on education for kids, youth, women, but we really focus on restoring areas. So we work with beach cleanups, for example. That's one of the things that we became most famous because of the beach cleanups. We were doing many actions in the city of Rio de Janeiro, but also in different cities. I also did in Germany a few times, some actions here. And we created also projects like climate projects, but with a focus on education for women and then for youth. We had a focus on public schools also. So kids and youth from the favelas of Rio that didn't have the opportunity to get in touch with some of this environmental language, but at the same time, many times they are the ones that have the most sustainable actions, not because they have this thinking, okay, but because they need to reuse a package, for example, because they need to. So many times people are being sustainable, they are having sustainable attitudes in their daily lives, but they don't recognize this.
Mm.
And it's really like a cultural thing that we need to change. Like it's not like a ESG, it's not only like a corporation language, like a
Mhm.
technical terms, but it's also like something cultural that it's really in our behavior. So in order to be more sustainable, I think we really need to focus on this cultural switch.
That's amazing. And just a side note here, I see some of the little girl Thaiane turning to something institutional nowadays, recovering areas, right? I could not forget what you just told me about how you would look around in the Bay where you grew up. It's cool to see a message that goes through over the years. I would like to stay in this moment where you addressing education, and you even made a comment that is very interesting. Sometimes environmental concern is already part of our lives, but we don't name them like that. We don't even know this is environmental, whatever, right? Taking care of the planet, it's just something we do, right? And it's very common in developing countries, by the way. A ton of our practices are deeply connected with balanced environmental practices, but we don't pay attention. We never learn this in a school, addressing the right names, right? I have a question for you about it. Looking at the ecosystems you operate in today, I'm including the Brazilian and the foreigner ecosystems. What do you believe needs to evolve most? Is the educational component, its communication, like you addressed it, its metrics, its more scientific approach, or stronger connections between companies and nonprofit organizations? What do you believe is the number one priority in the industry?
I think this combination, like corporations and nonprofits, and then entrepreneurs like startups, like because I also have this work as a consultant, so we really try to address this storytelling and then science and corporation, but not in order to build a greenwash speech. It's really like in order to really act and then think about strategies and things that are happening at the moment and are interesting, and people sometimes doesn't even know that they exist. So I think science is so important, and we have so many results, and we have so many, like the 1.5 target, for example, from the Paris Agreement, and then we had this overshoot like last year, and we saw this, and still like we have so many targets, but at the same time many people doesn't know how to act. And then I think the climate and then the environmental, it should not be something like, oh, this is far from me, or I'm not an environmentalist, oh no, I don't know how to act. So I think all of us will be affected, like that's our
Right.
planet, that's our daily lives. So we have been seeing the extreme events happening in our countries. For example, in Brazil, we have this every year, we have the results of extreme events, extreme floods and droughts. So we see in our daily lives what is happening, but at the same time we don't know how to start, we don't know how to act. So I think most of my work is to make it accessible, to make it possible, because we as individuals, like, who am I'm not from a rich family. I just wanted to change the environmental, like close to me, and then change my reality. So I think it was so important to try to combine this communication and this education, but in an order like, okay, we are very powerful, we as individuals. We can do so many things in order to change the world. And then people in the corporations, they are still people. They are still individuals. So that's something that many times we forget. So I feel that it's really important to still think about this possibility. Even the ones that are inside the corporations, they can do something. They can really push the agenda in order for us to have to achieve the targets that we have. We can change the governance of the companies. We can work on corporate volunteering. That's something we do with the NGO also. We can try to motivate our employees to do something, to act. So I think we have so many possibilities, and still, why don't we move forward to a better world? Why don't we move forward? Because honestly, I think we just need to combine those things. I think sometimes people don't feel that they have the power to change a system, to change their reality, and then That's something I truly believe. Sometimes feel that I might be sounding too optimistic, but we have so much technology at the moment. We have AI. Should use these strategies like this data that we have, but in order to have better results, in order to achieve something great, because I truly believe that we can move forward.
That's a great way to put this, because a lot of times we classify a given behavior in specific political boxes, right? Or even the market looks like, no, this environmental issues, this is traditionally a government's problem, not my problem. Oh, wow. And we share the problems, right? Why wouldn't we share the solutions? Why can't we just think out of the box and connect the tools we have and associate ourselves with multiple sectors and build interesting ideas? I would like to explore a little bit more of the entrepreneurial component of what you have been doing. Regardless of the nature of the organizations you've been launching, you've been out there in touch with corporations, in touch with businesses and civic organizations. As an activist, as a public person in Rio, you've been engaged in a lot of those conversations. I would like to ask you if there was a specific moment where you almost gave up.
Mm, that's not easy question, because it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, director of an NGO, or even like artist. Those are some pathways that are you need to think a lot, and I overthink a lot. I feel sometimes. So to
All of us
trust,
do. All of us do.
yeah, like how can I be better? Like what can I do differently? What product would be more interesting, or how do I sell myself? What's my price? But at the same time, how can I have better results, more impact? So
Mhm.
it's not only a matter of course, profiting, but at the same time, that's our work. We need to think about these possibilities. We need to think about these different strategies, but we need to be creative. And that's something I'm really trying to work on, like use my abilities as artist, actress, and then environmental engineer and creator. So many times I think about, okay, maybe I will stop here, maybe I will change a different direction. But that also gives me strength to think about new possibilities. Maybe this product is not very interesting, or maybe we need to think about other possibilities. We need to create a different storytelling. We need to address in a different way. So I think this adaptation, that is something that is so important. And we as human beings, we have this power of adaptation, and we will need this in the next years and decades, because the climate is really changing, and we need to have this ability to adapt. So, and that's something that in the climate area that is very discussed, because many people still talk a lot about the mitigation. We can still mitigate, but at the same time, with the results that we have with the emissions and the overshoot, then all these climate scenarios, we see that only mitigating will not be possible. So we need to have better strategies to adapt. So I really try to embrace this word in my work. I think that's something that we will need as entrepreneurs, as corporations, as NGOs, because the world is constantly changing. We have these externalities. We have things happening all the time. We have war happening now. The market is changing. We are not like we were some decades ago. So I think we need to rethink about our strategies, but not lose the ability to create. So we can create new narratives, we can create new startups. Even the use of AI could help with this at the moment. We have this ability that AI doesn't have, like that is really like this creative possibilities. And that's something that I really want to explore in the following years.
Hey, Silas here. Before we continue, I have a quick request. If you're enjoying the Peregrine Growth Cast, please take a second to follow the show on the platform while you're listening now. That small action is incredibly strategic for the podcast and will mean the world to me. It helps me reach more founders, grow this global community, and the most important, keeping you up to date with every single episode I launch. Thank you very, very much for supporting the journey. Hit the follow button, alright? Thank you very much. Now let's get back. You have navigated multiple sectors, from activism to corporate strategy to digital influence. What lesson from this journey most strengthened your leadership vision? What would you say that was a game changer for you?
I feel that all these have something in common, that is communication. This ability of communicating the results. Communication is the key for all the sectors, honestly. If I am a scientist and I don't communicate my results, how the broad audience will know about it? So I can spend like 10, 20 years in the lab and then find something amazing. But if I don't communicate this in a way that everybody will understand, what is the purpose of that? So I feel that this connection between these different sectors is really the communication. So a corporation, for example, or even a startup, I can have amazing solutions, but if you don't bring the solutions to a broad audience, to your target group, why am I working? Even with your investors, you need to really have this ability, have a good pitch. What I'm seeing, it's like sometimes a corporation or a startup is doing an amazing job, but it's even locally, even people that are close to this area, like they don't know it. So it's so important to reach the people beside you. And as a content creator, I think it's always challenging, of course, because your target group, it's like, okay, what is my direction? Like, should I put a little bit more humor in my videos? Should I be more serious about the topic? And it's very interesting because each country or like each age differs a lot. So, for example, public in Brazil, it's very different from public in Germany. So when I think about a video, I need to think about these different strategies. Like, okay, like how do I sensibilize people? How do I raise awareness? Should I use a little bit more humor? Should I be a little bit more serious about this topic, but in a way that I will sensibilize the audience? And it's also a creative thinking that I feel that is very interesting. Of course, using the metric, that helps a lot, like seeing the results and then understanding, okay, I could explore more this group, I could go for here or there. But I honestly feel that communication is taken for granted many times, because in many workshops, many conferences, I see this. They talk about this a lot and the education also, but it's not something that people want to invest sometimes. They want to invest in AI and innovation and so many different things, but we are not connecting as humans. And I think the most effective way to connect is through communication. So I think this should be something more considered.
1,000%. I was remembering this quote attributed to Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest leaders of all time, and he was leading, leading South Africa to a new country after the apartheid and everything. And he would say, "When you talk to your opponents, don't talk to their minds; you talk to their hearts." There's a level of communication that really puts everyone on the same page. That's deeper than just being stuck in your head and just speaking from your perspective. But there's another level that's more sophisticated, that connects people from multiple silos and multiple areas. What you're saying is really interesting. If you could design an ideal hub for climate innovation and opportunity today, what would it look like? And who would you want building it with you?
I would like a very diverse hub, because I honestly don't think the answer comes just from one side or other. So I would really think very diverse, with researchers, artists, corporations, startups, NGOs. I would really try with local communities, with traditional communities, because that's something that I feel that we talk a lot about. Oh, local communities, people that are going to suffer the most the climate change impacts, but at the same time, the youth, the women, we don't bring them to the table. Sometimes we give them a very short moment. Okay, I need some quota. I need some a small percentage to be diverse in order to represent this group. But in the decision making processes, I feel that we need to bring everybody to the table. We need to bring politicians. We need to bring policy makers. We need to bring everybody to the table. And in order to achieve Climate Hub, I really feel that we cannot be just inside our bubble. That's something that I sometimes feel. We go to these conferences, we see the same people, we say the same results, but how do we reach broader audience? Like, I want my grandma to listen to this and then to understand what we are talking about. I want the kids to understand. So I think it's really important to be as diverse as possible, because many of the solutions, for example, the local communities, they have been doing this for years, decades, centuries. And now we are trying to innovate, we are trying so many different techniques, but the nature-based solutions are like being implemented by them. So it's really important a lot, not just to give space for like this, but have everybody in the same page, everybody working together. And this integration, sometimes it's not happening. So it's a little bit frustrating when you go to a conference and people spend like thousands of reais, so much money to go to conferences, and sometimes you see the same people. We don't reach new people. So the part of the conferences that I really like, it's usually when it's open to the public, and then the public can interact with what's happening. And sometimes they are like, oh, I saw this at COP30 in Brazil. They had this green zone. That's usually like green zones and conferences, these UN conferences are open to the public, and it was so great that they engaged, they went there. We had the indigenous communities making pressure in order to achieve better results, and we saw this in a pacific way happening. So it's important to have the participation of everybody in order to achieve better results. I really trust this is the only way that we will have a better world, or at least better results. So I would bring everybody to the table. I would not just think about one specific group.
Thaiane Maciel, looking back at everything you have experienced and overcome to get here, what message would you like to share with those listening to you today?
I had to come back to my childhood, maybe, to my reality, to my local reality, in order to feel what was important to me and align my vision with my actions. And I think it's really important to, whenever you don't know what's your path, you don't know where should you go, I think going back to your life or your local reality would be really important to understand what it means to you, like what is important in your life, what direction you want to go. So I feel that we are constantly changing, and that's also beautiful about life, this nature. So the nature of things, or like it can be a little bit challenging, because me, for example, I'm always afraid, I'm always scared of changing. But at the same time, if it wasn't by that, I think I wouldn't be here. I feel that I still need to grow in many aspects, but I honestly feel that the best way to at least try to find an answer for your thoughts or for your questions would be trying to go inside, and then in a very, not therapeutical, but in a very, way. I think it's always nice when you try to stop a little bit to think about your values, to think about what is important to you. And this helped me a lot when I did this. I was forced to do this movement because of the pandemic. I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do from here? What can I do from here? Because sometimes our possibilities are different from what we would love. But if we could combine our skills with this, I think we have very powerful results. So I always try to bring my expertise as an actress, as an artist, to the environmental, to the climate sector, because I think that's my strength. Maybe try to feel what can I bring to the table, what makes me unique. So communication, it's really like one of the most important tools that we have, and we should use this in a way to have a better world, in a way to really focus on climate solutions. But we need to bring this to a broad audience. We need to work together as corporations, startups, NGOs. I think we should bring everybody to the table in order to sensibilize people and to raise awareness, to give them tools to act in their territories. Honestly, that's my work. That's what I'm focusing on at the moment, and that's my vision for the next years, is really using the communication. That's what I will focus more and more in the following years.
I'm Silas, and you've been listening to the Peregrine Growth Cast. your podcast where founders, investors, and explorers share their stories about entrepreneurship, travel, and meaningful living. Each episode explores what really takes to build structured ventures in a rapid changing world while staying connected to what truly matters in life. Stick around. See you in the next.